Triple H has responded to one of the biggest complaints from the fans. We're also going to see what's going on with Kiana James, the tag team division, and more. Ice Cube's son, O'Shea Jackson Jr., is a massive wrestling fan and even works closely with WWE sometimes. He was recently a guest on Ariel Helwani's show, and he spoke about a conversation that he had with Triple H while filming Stephanie McMahon's podcast. One of his biggest transgressions he brought up to Triple H's attention was the ad placement on WWE television. He told Triple H that the shows are starting to feel unwatchable because of the overload of ads during the product. And according to him, Triple H said that they're aware of the fan feedback about the ads and how they're actively trying to work on the placement of them and improve it. This is an issue that a lot of fans have been bringing up in recent weeks, especially with WrestleMania 42. Fans were shocked with the amount of ads that were displayed during that show, with some fans even joking that there was more ad runtime than actual wrestling runtime. This has also been an issue for a long time with the Saturday night main event shows too, where fans feel like the ad placement is, let's just say, very disruptive to the flow of the show. Fans are complaining that the ads even for Raw on Netflix are starting to get insane and disruptive as well. Now, the fans aren't asking for the ads to be fully removed, and obviously they have bills to pay, but like Triple H said, it's the placement of them that can definitely be improved upon, because at the moment, it feels like they're getting spammed, and it's very disruptive to the pacing and flow of the show. So if they can somehow figure the placement out and make it feel less disruptive, maybe that would result in a better flowing show, and it wouldn't come off as so annoying to the fans. But the important part here is that they're at least aware about that complaint from the fans, and so hopefully we do see maybe even a little adjustment made sometime in the near future. Internal conflict amongst tag teams and factions is always a big thing that's going on within the company. There's a lot of it going on right now with Roxanne and Liv, Solo and Tama, and now there's another active internal conflict being added to that list, and that's Kiana James and Giulia. Even since returning from injury, Kiana James has been Giulia's manager and main mouthpiece. Seemed like Kiana really took Giulia in as a client and was strongly representing her. And then, slowly, over time, we saw Kiana James return to the ring herself and was wrestling more often. Now, despite wrestling as well, it still seemed like Kiana was putting her client first. But as Kiana kept wrestling, it really seemed like her relationship with Giulia sort of shifted from manager and client to being a tag team duo. And jealousy never really appeared to get in the way for Kiana James and Giulia. They never had any issues or miscommunication with each other. But that all completely changed during the May 8th edition of Smackdown. On this episode of Smackdown, Kiana James had a women's U.S. title match against Tiffany Stratton. And for really the first time ever, a lot of miscommunication was displayed between Kiana James and Giulia. When Kiana James was distracting the referee, it set up the perfect opportunity for Giulia to cheap shot Tiffany behind the referee's back in order to give Kiana the advantage. But Giulia instead chose not to strike Tiffany. And then, later on in the match, Giulia decides to distract the referee, but she does it at the worst time ever, right as Kiana was going for a roll-up on Tiffany. So, two big instances where Kiana and Giulia were on two completely different pages. If Kiana and Giulia were perfectly synced up with each other during that match, it's possible that Kiana could have stolen the U.S. Women's title from Tiffany Stratton. But, because of their miscommunication, Kiana James lost and was left there arguing with Giulia in the middle of the ring after the match. The big question here, though, is why would Giulia do this to Kiana James? Was it bad timing and miscommunication? Or were Giulia's screw-ups on purpose? The story at the moment is a bit ambiguous, but you can certainly make a case for either side. Maybe it was accidental miscommunication. Or maybe this was fully intentional from Giulia. Remember that Giulia was the women's U.S. champion recently. She is the one who just lost it to Tiffany Stratton. Maybe Giulia really wanted her own rematch for the title and was maybe a bit sour that the rematch went to Kiana James. Remember that Kiana and Giulia did approach Tiffany backstage about Giulia getting a rematch, but Tiffany refused to give the match to Giulia and instead said that she's going to give the match to Kiana James instead. So, as I said, maybe Giulia was feeling a little bit sour that Kiana James accepted the U.S. title match for herself and then didn't really push back at Tiffany for the match to go to Giulia instead. Maybe that's the moment where Giulia realized that Kiana James isn't really her manager. Kiana wants these opportunities as well, and she's not passing it up to Giulia. So maybe that's what had Giulia a bit in her feelings, and maybe that's why she refused to help Kiana cheat in the title match against Tiffany Stratton. Giulia was sabotaging Kiana's title match, potentially, with the mentality of, okay, if I can't be champion, you can't be champion. Giulia didn't want to see Kiana, allegedly, cut in front of her in line for the U.S. title. And she certainly didn't want to see Kiana James as the new champion, allegedly. So that's why she had to screw up that match and opportunity there for Kiana James. So, of course, this miscommunication appears that it's heading those two down a path of falling out and splitting up with each other. As we know, these types of stories don't feature any sudden payoffs, so it's probably more likely that this is going to be a slow-burning story, and it's going to be several months before we see Kiana and Giulia split from each other. At this early point in their potential fallout story, it's not that clear which of the two is going to be the babyface and which one's going to be the heel. Kiana James definitely has the character and persona to continue to play a great heel, so maybe it's possible that Giulia is the one who turns babyface here. Giulia has had a lot of championship success on the main roster with 2 U.S. title reigns under her belt, but a lot of people want to see Giulia connect more with the fans. And a babyface turn here with this entire Kiana James situation, that might be what gets that crowd connection jump-started. So keep your eyes out for the situation there between Kiana and Giulia, because things, I think, are about to get crazy there for that story. A new conversation is breaking out amongst the fans, and it involves the men's tag team division. Fans are noting that the men's tag team division on both Raw and SmackDown is looking pretty weak at the moment, and so it has fans discussing the idea of unifying the tag team titles again. Each brand's tag team division is pretty thin, but if you combine what Raw and SmackDown both have, well then maybe you would have a pretty decent tag team division. The men's tag team titles were actually unified over the last few years up until WrestleMania 40 back in 2024, and that's when the decision was made to split the tag team titles and send one pair over to Raw and the other pair over to SmackDown. And it worked for a bit. But now, just over 2 years later, you got fans wondering if maybe it's time to unify the men's tag team titles again and have one pair of champions across both brands. Pretty much exactly like how the women's tag team titles work, where there's one pair of champions and then they bounce back and forth between Raw and SmackDown. And it really feels like the division just has so much more depth because they're facing teams from both brands. So that's what the fans are discussing for the men's tag team champions, for it to be one pair of champions that bounce back and forth between the brands. Now, so far, there's been no official report or really even a rumor about the company unifying the men's tag team titles. That really doesn't appear to be on the horizon at all. However, it is a conversation that has been recently started by the fans because they think it would, I guess you could say, really benefit the men's tag team division right now as a whole. But anyway, what are your thoughts on today's stories? Leave your comments down below. Don't forget to subscribe with all notifications on, and make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, guys.